to the NXT Podcast, your home for weekly NXT reviews and insight.
The beautiful part of NXT is that when one dream ends, another dream begins.
Find all of your NXT news, recaps, and analysis right here. So with that being said, we only have one question for you.
Are you ready?
We thought so. Let's get the show started right now.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the NXT Podcast, the I was finally able to do this right on time edition. I am Zachary Smith. I am your host, as always. Very excited to be here with you on something of an action-packed episode of NXT. This episode felt important, if only because a week from Sunday is TakeOver in your house. So we are in super setup mode for that, trying to set up a really good card for that TakeOver. And we're doing a good job so far. Before we get started, you can always find me on Twitter. I am at ZachNXT. That's at ZACHNXT. Talking about wrestling and other fun stuff over there. You can join us over there if you would like. Now, usually we talk about the news and what's been going on in wrestling in a segment called News, where I don't just type WWE and go to news and read it, because I don't. And I know you guys think I do. And you guys are supposed to be my friends, and you need to stop, because I don't. I did this time, though. I never have before and never will again, but I did this time because there's really only one news story going on. Because I recorded earlier in the week this week, I was able to get to it almost right when it happened. WWE's doing some more releases. I'm not going to nail this point home so much that we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic and this is messed up. Don't get me wrong, that's absolutely true. But I've kind of gone down that path a few times with WWE. Seems like, one, they're not going to fix anything, and two, don't particularly care what anybody thinks about it because they're bad people, but that doesn't matter. So we got more releases. Santana Garrett was released, Ruby Riott was released, Murphy was released, Lana was released, and the two big ones were Braun Strowman and Alistair Black. So, we'll go over that real quick. I don't remember a lot of Santana Garrett. I don't know why they chose to release her instead of having, a different idea for her. It seems like if they don't have a good idea for you at the time, they just release you rather than trying to think of a different idea. Ruby Riott was released. She was doing old Riott Squad stuff with Liv Morgan, and by that I mean they showed up on backstage segments sometimes. Liv Morgan had come back and was going like one-on-one with Charlotte Flair and was clearly supposed to be having an upward trajectory, and then the rumor came out that Vince didn't like something about her, and so of course she becomes irrelevant, and her and Ruby are pushed to the sidelines. I don't understand why WWE would sign somebody like Ruby Riott, who they clearly were not going to do anything with, if they weren't going to do anything with her. Like, props to her for coming and doing what she could with what she was given, which was virtually nothing, and getting paid, hopefully, a lot to be in this completely dysfunctional, just arrogant for no reason company. But a wrestler that looks and wrestles and talks like Ruby Riott doesn't fit what WWE wants in their perfect little box, and they weren't going to do anything with her. So in a way, I'm a little bit surprised she made it this far just because they never do anything with her. On the other hand, that sucks because you've had her for years, and she was legitimately somebody that you could have run with in the women's division that desperately needed it, but they never did. And so she never had like a career highlight, not because of her, because of the way that they used her. Stop signing people just to keep them away from other people or just scoop up talent if you don't have actual ideas for them. If you don't have actual ideas for them, you need different writers because you have a lot, so you should have a lot of ideas. But the person they're pitching them to, if they just shoot everything down, well then maybe we need a different person at the top. Murphy was released. He was Seth Rollins' disciple, which was going good for a while, and then they kept having them break up and then tease being back together, and that was not going anywhere. And then I don't know if he got hurt or what happened, but he hadn't been on TV. He was doing the stuff with the Mysterios and all that, and the weird story with Ray's daughter, but that stopped, and then they released him. Murphy is ridiculously talented. He's already got the physique for WWE. He's clearly very good in the ring, although that doesn't really matter in WWE. And he had a charisma to him, and he was getting better at promos. You absolutely could have done something with Murphy. Hell, send him back to NXT if you don't think he works on the main roster, because he could absolutely work in NXT. But rather than sending some of these people, a Ruby Riott, a Murphy, maybe a Santana Garrett, to NXT, where I feel like we could use them, or have many of your mini-writers come up with ideas, or the head of the table, Vince McMahon, actually accepting some of those ideas and seeing how they play out rather than deciding they won't, you just release them. That doesn't make sense to me. These are really, really, really talented people who could help you. So even if you're trying to hide behind, no, we're not evil people, you are, but we're not evil people, but this is a business decision. Well, one, you're about to be back to live touring. You signed the Fox deal. You made more money than you've ever made, despite not earning any of it. I don't understand what the business decision is here. Lana was released. This is a weird one, because Lana's never been like a good wrestler, although you can tell she was working on it, but she just wasn't very good. It wasn't particularly interesting. They didn't have a lot for her to do, especially after Miro left. Or Rusev, I guess, in WWE. It took me a minute to think of his name. So they released her. They seem to like having Lana because they could always share like one of her Instagram pictures. Like basically the gist of it being who had the better Instagram picture. Really, it's just like, oh my God, guys, look at this hot person. Do you see her? And then Eva comes back, and all of a sudden Lana's out. I mean, they weren't going to do anything with Lana. They hadn't in a long time. Or at least a pretty long time. They weren't going to. Okay, I don't know what else you do with Lana. I feel like it was an experiment they ran with for a while, and it just wasn't working. I can't decide which one of these is weirder. Alistair Black. Alistair Black is a fantastically talented wrestler who, got over everywhere he went. Got over in NXT with this unique character that had some of the aura of the Undertaker, but it wasn't copying the Undertaker, and he was really good, and he was coming along with promos in his character. And then Vince or somebody high up there decided that this gimmick that he has that worked in NXT, and we thought worked well enough that we brought him up to the main roster with that same gimmick, decided that that gimmick wouldn't be good enough for him to get over and be a star. And so they kind of shuffled him off, just not on TV. Then they fired his wife because of Twitch or something. And then there were rumors that Zelena Vega was going to be coming back to WWE. I don't know why you would, but that's me. If you have options, I understand if you don't. And then he comes and debuts as this new character who's just a dude in a dark room in a chair in a black dress shirt and black pants, almost doing an old Bray Wyatt impression. Kind of a dude that's clearly out of it, that thinks he has like some profound wisdom. My point being, his new character was not much different than his old character. So what they did is they put a bunch of money and resources and time into coming up with this new character and doing these really legitimately cool looking animations for stories that he would tell. And then I guess didn't have any ideas and just kind of released him. So I don't necessarily understand. Like, you put all this effort into bringing him back, and then he comes out and attacks Big E, and like we're actually starting something, and then he's just released. More on that from Sportskeeda. They say, speaking of Alistair Black's creative standing in WWE, Fightful revealed that WWE officials got the Dutch star back on TV to start a feud with Big E, however, had no long-term endgame in store for the Alistair Big E program. Added that people associated with formulating the SmackDown storyline were unaware of WWE's plan to release Alistair Black. However, the creative team was told to, quote, stop making pitches for Black, and the company would provide no specific reason behind the instruction. during a Twitch stream following his release. Must feel good to be able to do that. Alistair confirms that he was told that it was budget cuts. One of his tweets said, "Guys, I'm not mad at all. Let's have a talk about it. Share some stories with me. Come hang out on Twitch." Zelena Vega was also spotted at the Performance Center, though it seems nobody knows what her role was going to be. I don't get it, man. If you didn't have plans for him, why did you bring him back to attack Big E? Even if you're cool with just being an evil bunch of people and you're going to release him, it seems like you would let your SmackDown people know that so that they're not coming up with ideas, because clearly ideas are very limited in this company. So you brought me up to the main roster when I was doing really well on NXT. You did nothing with me. You decided my gimmick was the problem, not your ability to present it. Then I was off for a while. Then you fired my wife. Then brought me back with basically the same character, except you could take credit for it. Then brought my wife back, almost about to come back. And then you have me go out and attack Big E. And then, like, the next week I'm fired? What are we... So you're evil people, but you're also stupid and waste your own time? What do we do? Like, evil people are supposed to be, like, efficient and want to make things easier on them. So you're not even being, like, an evil person correctly, and that's weird. Braun Strowman was also released. This is weird just because, while it wasn't the original plan, Braun Strowman was just Universal Champion. There was a time, however you feel about Braun Strowman now, there was a time when Braun Strowman was your favorite part of Raw. When he was destroying stuff. And then he faced Brock Lesnar, and we all were like, Braun Strowman needs to beat Brock Lesnar, and then that didn't happen. And his run recently hadn't been the best, but that's because they wanted him to, like, be a promo-cutting giant, which doesn't necessarily work, and they're having him feud with Shane McMahon. And as much as the McMahons love themselves, Shane McMahon is not and has never will be, easy for me to say, like a draw or somebody that feels important. Whether it's Braun Strowman or AJ Styles or Kurt Angle, everybody talks about that King of the Ring match where Kurt Angle throws Shane McMahon through the plexiglass and all that stuff. Nobody talks about anything else from that match, because watching a Shane McMahon match is like watching something be microwaved. Like, yeah, stuff is happening, and there might be some cool moments and a good end result here, but I'm still just staring at food heating up. And they decide to release him. This is after they put out a documentary around WrestleMania where he was almost all the way home driving many, many hours, and they called and said, hey, Roman can't make it. You need to come back. And he comes right back because he's definitely a company dude. And then on that, I think it was a WWE 24 maybe, he mentions, like, his mental health struggles and the fact that he was considering doing something to himself. I'm not going to use the actual terminology in case that's a triggering thing for anybody. I want to be sensitive to that. But he was going through real mental health struggles, and I don't know if he actually got help for those struggles, but he seemed to be in a good place mentally and emotionally. And he was just a guy that, like, whatever you think of him personally, was always a company guy, and they just release him. The point here is WWE still releasing people in a pandemic. A few of those, I could kind of see how you'd release somebody like a Lana. Nothing against the person, but they clearly weren't going to do anything with her, and I honestly don't know what you do with her. But Alistair Black, Murphy, and Braun Strowman could have been active parts of your show. Hell, with Alistair, he was about to be, and then you didn't have any ideas and ran away screaming. If you're going to be evil people, which you have a long track record of being, at least be efficient ones and don't make such a mess that my biggest takeaway from it is to laugh at your incompetence, not only to put a coherent or entertaining show together every week that's not SmackDown, or to just, like, fire people for weird reasons because you can't come up with ideas. If we're firing people because there's no creative plans, instead of continually firing the people who execute the plan, maybe we should fire the people that don't seem to be able to come up with a plan. If a football team is playing poorly, we're probably going to fire the coach before we replace all the players, huh? Whatever. That's WWE, baby. But we have NXT to talk about. Nobody's getting fired from NXT. We have a recap of last week, that NXT title match, and Karrion Kross beating Finn Balor, and maybe Finn's last match in NXT. Talked about it last week. Don't necessarily know what else Finn could do in NXT. Like, you could keep him, but I don't know like what he does from here. But tonight we're going to get a new number one contender. Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, and Pete Dunne. Triple threat match that should be really good. All three of these dudes, talked about it last week, could have a good to great match with Karrion Kross. I think Johnny would have been the person who gave him the best match. Also tonight, MSK defending the tag titles. Remember those? Against Legado del Fantasma, and Kushida has an open challenge for the Cruiserweight title. Surprisingly, we're doing this real early because Pete Dunne is out right now. Pete Dunne is still very ripped and always looks like he's looking for the guy that's been texting his girl behind his back. Johnny's out next with Austin Theory accompanying him. Austin gives him a hug and walks to the back, leaving Johnny. Kyle O'Reilly's out next. Kyle O'Reilly's very, very good in the ring, but he would be the least interesting winner of this match. The other two guys can carry this feud on their end with promos, especially in those vignettes that are like building a UFC title fight like they did with Finn and Karrion Kross. Kyle cannot do that. He's not natural sounding as a good guy, and it never comes across quite right. That's not his fault. It's just a certain way you have to use him, but again, any of these guys in the actual ring will have a great match with Kross. It's just, I think Johnny Gargano would have been the best choice. It's not the one to go with, and spoiler alert, it's none of these three by themselves. Kross is going to beat whoever wins, but it'll still be really fun. So Pete Dunne and Kyle O'Reilly are outside the ring, and Adam Cole attacks them both with a steel chair. He takes out the ref in the process. Adam Cole kicks Johnny in the back of the head. Regal comes out with security. Adam agrees to leave with them, but then kicks Kyle O'Reilly in the head first because he's a jerk. Regal's very, very good at looking really, really mad, specifically at Adam Cole and also Pete Dunne. It's just always fantastic. If he's mad at somebody, he's always really good, but if it is Adam Cole or Pete Dunne, it is just magnifique. So we're back from break, and Adam Cole's still here arguing on the entrance ramp with Regal and security. While they're arguing, Ember Moon walks past them to the ring as they're walking Cole out. Ember Moon tells Raquel Gonzalez to get her big ass out here. She said, "I'll stand here all day and I will hold this show hostage." Raquel finally comes out with Regal clearly running behind her, who's very busy tonight trying to talk her out of this. He tries to talk her out of it, but she runs in. They start fighting. This will be a fun title match, I suppose. Security separates them. Regal looks like he was too old for this many years ago, and he's had enough today. Of course, Dakota Kai comes in and attacks him from behind. Sure, why not? It always feels less important when you involve Dakota Kai, and I want to be very clear, that has nothing to do with Dakota Kai, the person or performer. It has to do with the way that they've used her or not used her, as the case may be, and the way they lost those tag title matches, and Dakota was the only one that looked bad. So now it feels less important. So Legado del Fantasma's in the back. They are very confident they're going to win the tag titles here tonight. Legado del Fantasma's turned into a good group. They have like chemistry together now that they've been together on TV for a while, and they're very entertaining together. Oni Lorcan is in the back. He's with the injured Pete Dunne. He says if it weren't for Adam Cole, Pete Dunne would be number one contender right now. Austin Theory says it would have been Johnny, and they start shoving each other. Cuts from that to Adam Cole walking back out to the ring. It's weird that security didn't make sure he left. That's a bad job. We're back from break and Cole is in the ring. He said, 2 years ago to the day, I became NXT champion. It has been longer than it feels like it has been since he's been NXT champion. He says, whether they want to admit it or not, you are looking at the real number one contender. I have been gone for 2 months. And everybody tried to live up to my legacy. Surprise, surprise, they failed. He said, I took out 3 NXT stars in one night. I want my NXT title back. He says, which brings me to you, Karrion Kross. People think you're some kind of monster, but to me, you're nothing but a big, overrated musclehead who shouldn't be in the same ring with me. Pay attention to that verbiage. It's going to be important later. He said a 403 title reign wasn't an accident, and he's interrupted by Kross and Scarlett. That's why it feels like it hasn't been that long ago. He won it 2 years ago and then held it for over a year. That makes sense now. This promo-cutting version of Karrion Kross is a much better version of the character. It's less edgy, stoopy, nailed it, stupid, spooky stuff. There's the words. and more I'm a monster, I will kill you kind of thing, that works, which, if you'll recall, is kind of what we've been calling for when he was doing weird, spooky stuff. He said, little man, your motives tonight were understandable. You want to be NXT champion. He said, but no matter what you ever do, it's never going to change things in the grand scheme. He said, the truth is, when I signed here on the dotted line, you became not special, and you know that. Adam says, the truth is, you ain't Adam Cole, baby, and you never will be. This brand has done everything in their power to make you look special. You have the great entrance theme, the fog, the girl. He said, the only thing they have to do to make Adam Cole feel special is ring the frickin' bell. On your best day, you couldn't lace my boots. Anyone who watches pro wrestling knows that. You want to talk about special, Cross? You aren't special. You're just the guy that has my property. Regal interrupts. He says, Adam, I see what you're doing, and it won't work. You're trying to worm your way into a title match. Before you can get to that, Cross tells Regal to shut up. Said, I don't care what either of you think. This is about what I want to do. What I want to take over is everyone in the match. Give me Kyle O'Reilly, Johnny Gargano, Pete Dunne, and this gas station weasel, Adam Cole. Said, I promise no matter what kind of politicking you do backstage, you aren't getting out of this ass-kicking. Regal's in the ring now. He smiles. He says, done. Regal's very good at going from really mad to delighted very fast, and he's just a gem and needs to be protected. All right, here's the thing. I don't hate, that's a strong word. I don't like this at all. I don't like this promo or like this setup. Here's why. There are a lot of believable and really good reasons why Adam Cole would do what he did tonight, would insert him, would feel disrespected that his name wasn't brought up, and then would attack the people who had the audacity to be in the ring, then would come out and say, no, I'm the greatest, I'm the real number one contender, and then would try to basically challenge Cross himself, and then his plan would go slightly awry, and it would be a fatal five-way, which is what it is now. There's a lot of good reason why Adam Cole would do that. He feels disrespected. He wants the NXT title back. He's not going to let Kyle O'Reilly, certainly, not take his spot that he feels like he has. That all makes perfect sense to me. What does not make sense to me is to build a feud with your NXT champion, whereupon the basis for the feud is the bad guy, by the way, saying, you cannot out-wrestle me on your best day. There's a few reasons for that. One, the bad guy shouldn't be the guy who can wrestle circles around the good guy. The whole point, generally, is that the good guy is better and the bad guy uses underhanded tactics. And, I understand if they had a match tomorrow, that's how it would go. But Karrion Kross is still relatively new. He's not an Adam Cole or a Johnny Gargano yet. So to set up this match by saying, all they have to do to make me look special is ring the bell. You're a lot of smoke and mirrors. You can't lace up my boots on your best day. One, a lot of people are going to agree with that. That's fair. But now your bad guy's acting like a good guy. Also, when it comes time for the match, let's say it had been one-on-one. Adam Cole would be the better wrestler only because Adam Cole's been doing this a very long time and he's excellent in the ring. Now that's fine. You can get away with that as a match type because Karrion Kross is a monster. He's not like a technical wizard out there. But if your bad guy says you can't lace up my boots and that's how we're basing the reason that he's coming after Kross because he thinks he's a better wrestler, it's going to put more emphasis on the fact that Karrion Kross isn't exactly where you would maybe like him to be. He's very good at what he does, but I haven't seen enough of him to know if he's going to always hold up his end of the bargain or if he's going to be as good as somebody who probably has years of experience on him. So Adam Cole, just a pure wrestling-wise, is going to look better than a lot of other people in the world. Forget NXT. So you're already setting Karrion Kross up at a deficit where the bad guy is already like, you don't wrestle well enough to be champion. So, I mean, it's a bad guy, so you take it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, fans don't always do that. They will take things literally, and then before you know it, if there's real fans around, you have Karrion Kross getting booed and Adam Cole getting cheered because Adam Cole's the real wrestler here. You don't want to emphasize that Karrion Kross isn't a wrestling-type wrestler. He's like a brawler and a monster. It doesn't make sense that the sole reason that you would have Adam Cole say for this is not, I wanted to take out O'Reilly and certainly Gargano and probably Pete Dunne. I want to fight Karrion Kross for my title. That makes sense. I'm interrupting and taking these other people out because you couldn't lace up my boots is always a weak way to start a program and doesn't work. So that's cool. Hope we forget about this and that goes away. He's leaving the ring. He throws a water bottle at Karrion Kross and Scarlett and runs off. The announcers come back and they say that Kushida's open challenge has been accepted by somebody who's been impressing a lot of people in the Performance Center. I forget what they said his old name was, but now his name's Carmelo Hayes. So this is a new dude. Pretty good promo, little vignette for him. We'll see, because Kushida's out first. This is where they mention that TakeOver in Your House is 1 week from Sunday, so hopefully that'll turn out to be a good card. Not sure everything we're going to see, but we have a few matches. This is where they officially also tell us that In Your House will be a fatal 5-way for that NXT title, so that should be fun. Carmelo Hayes comes out last. I have not seen this dude before, but that doesn't mean anything. He's got a custom theme already, and Titantron and like a real entrance, so this is going to be like a guy moving forward, not just an enhancement talent. Enhancement talent's in the ring before the champion makes their entrance and doesn't get a video package usually. Like, this is going to be a guy. Hayes has a tap out to the hoverboard lock, and Kushida retains the title. That was a fun match. I think Hayes is going to fit in well here in NXT. I'm interested to see what his promo kind of skill is. You can get away with some of that in a vignette where you're not doing it just to a crowd or live, that you kind of have to see him out there doing it. But he was really good. I hope he's not going to be in the cruiserweight division anymore, because that's a death you die every week, but there's talent here. Like, Kushida's really good, and it could not matter less that he's cruiserweight champion, because that title is of no real consequence. We already have the North American title as the, I guess, lesser title from the NXT title, and we didn't need another one, and this title just historically has meant nothing. So, and I mean, props to those people that win it, and it is a big deal to be a champion, but it's nothing. So, he has to tap out, but Kushida gives him respect after the match. He shakes his hand. Kushida's out. So hopefully we see more of Carmelo Hayes. MSK promo on Legado del Fantasma. They're actually good when they're doing promos that aren't just a bunch of dumb jokes that have been written for them. If they do this more, I think I'll dig it. This was good. This is like the third week now in a row of a promo video for Diamond Mind, which is opening soon. It looks like an MMA gym that they're intentionally not shooting the actual people. I'm going to assume that's going to be a group. There hasn't been any development of it, and it hasn't been particularly interesting, so I hadn't mentioned it yet. I'm going to go back to ignoring it until whoever it is shows up, and then we can talk about it. How about that? Ember Moon interview backstage says Raquel was one of the most dominant champions in NXT history. All right, settle it down a little bit here. Few things. Raquel just won it, and yeah, Raquel's the big diesel to the Shawn Michaels, but most dominant is real strong when Io Shirai just had that title. And don't, Ember, specifically act like you don't know who Asuka is. Stop it. She says she's one of the most dominant champions, but she uses Dakota Kai. She says, next week I'm going to beat Dakota. Then at In Your House, I'm going to become a 2-time NXT Women's Champion. I don't know why Ember Moon jumps up to number one contender. I guess just because Raquel's mad at her and wanted the match. But she was a tag team wrestler not but a little while ago. And it seems like somebody else would be higher than her on those rankings, but I don't know. Now, fun fact, she said become a 2-time NXT champion. I legit did not at all remember Ember winning that women's title the first time she was in NXT. Literally, the only thing I remember about her in NXT is losing to Asuka a lot, like being put in matches with Asuka, and the story basically being, I'm gonna beat her this time, we're rivals. But it was one of those sports rivalries, like, I'm a Jaguars fan, and in the mid-2000s, like, we were division rivals with Peyton Manning's Colts, but we weren't, because the Colts would beat us every time, because we usually weren't good, and then once we beat them on, like, a last-second, really long field goal, and it was like, oh, the rivalry continues. It's not a real rivalry. So, like, Ember Moon almost never beat Asuka, so eventually, if I remember right, people started getting tired of it because they kept doing it, and it was clear that Asuka wasn't going to lose and that Ember didn't quite have it, and so wasn't accepted. I didn't remember at all that she had won the title. Also, Poppy returns to NXT next week. She's always cool to see. She's been on a few shows before. She's a good musical act. I'm not sure why next week and not like at TakeOver, but I'll take it. Main event time. Legado del Fantasma is out first. It's very weird seeing a tag match as the main event. They don't do this very often. I couldn't tell you when the last tag team main event of, like, not just like 6-man where it's like people that aren't tag teams. Santos Escobar is out to walk the dudes out. Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde are the dudes' names, and I always forget that. Tag champs MSK are out next. They still have a stock, like, hard rock WWE file theme, and that's not ideal, because if it hasn't changed by now, it's probably not changing, and it's just kind of generic and boring, but maybe they like it, and that's fine. They lower the lights for the intro and announce it like a main event. This feels like a big deal for a tag division they haven't done much with. So this is good. Like, I have no faith that we will carry this momentum going forward. I think this is like set up for TakeOver, and they needed a main event. And this is a good one because the wrestling is going to be very good, and these teams have great chemistry. But I don't see them all of a sudden really caring about the tag team division. But if they do want to continue that momentum, this is a good way to start, to have them in this main event and tear it down, and then maybe have, I don't know if it's going to be a rematch at TakeOver in your house or if it's a different team, I'm not sure. But if you want to do something with the tag division, which I hope you do but don't think you do, then this is a really good way to do that. So they're having a really good match. Santos Escobar interferes while the ref isn't looking, and Legado almost win, like get like a 2.9 count out of 3. I thought they were going to win. Bronson Reed runs out, takes out Santos Escobar, and then MSK hit their double team move that I never catch the name of to retain the title. So at the end, we have Santos and Legado on the entrance ramp staring down Bronson Reed and MSK. So presumably this is going to continue, which would mean that we're going to have Bronson Reed defending the North American title against Santos Escobar, I presume at TakeOver in your house, and then maybe Legado gets another shot at the tag titles against MSK, which at that point it feels like they should probably win them. So we have some of our matches set up. So we have Bronson Reed, Escobar, maybe Legado and MSK. For some reason, Ember Moon and Raquel Gonzalez. Karrion Kross versus Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, and Pete Dunne in a fatal 5-way. Probably the NXT women's tag titles. I'm going to be honest, I don't care, neither do you. Maybe that's happening. I think I hit everything so far, but you can always let me know if I missed anything. Again, you can always find me on Twitter at ZachNXT, at ZACHNXT. I want to hear what you thought about what happened this week. What do you think of these weird releases? What do you think about maybe what we could have done for those people instead of firing them still during a pandemic? What do you think of the matches we have for TakeOver so far? Like, what do you think needs to be added? Are you excited? Do you see any titles changing hands? Let me hear it over there. But in the meantime, that is it for NXT, so that is it from me. I have been Zachary Smith. You have been fantastic as always, and thank you for listening.